Hey everybody, Dr. Deuce here. How are you? MTFU Success Podcast Series number 52. I'm with a really unique and interesting guy here, a little kind of far afield from what we usually do, Derek Wayne Johnson. He is a producer of documentary films, and he does a lot of other cool stuff. We're going to talk about all that. You saw all the Rocky stuff I posted. I hope you didn't think I baited and switched you. I don't know if you saw the thing I put up. I put MTFU Success Podcast, Sylvester Stallone. And then I explained afterward, I said, well, documentary filmmaker will discuss his close working relationship, but we get the people here and then we make them happy anyhow. Plus, maybe we'll get them in the future. Derek has been a Facebook friend of mine, but, we don't really interact too much, but I saw what he was doing lately. And, we know on our MTFU pages, we have somewhat of a Rocky motif. We love Rocky. He gets ripped. And even though our portal of entry is bodybuilding, it's not really a bodybuilding site. We end up talking to people who maybe started out with lifting weights. In fact, Stallone was trained by Franco Colombo, as a lot of people here know. And then we find out what people do with their lives afterwards. So it's kind of like a springboard. We like to see the longevity, success, consistent success over time. And I don't think anybody embodies that more than Rocky. And I think a guy like that, I was going to say a kid, I don't want to condescend, but, we were talking. I said, hey, how old are you? He was 37. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm 57. So when, and I said to him that old math I give out, I go, Derek, I can say about me, I have more years behind me than ahead of me, but Derek has more years ahead of him than behind him, probably, if you do the math. But he's a good guy. He's a gunner. He's done a lot from a young age. He's not waiting for things to come to him. And we'll learn how he's interacted with a guy like John Appleton. He's done a documentary with him, who's the director of both Rocky, the first Rocky, and Karate Kid. So, Derek, how are you, man? Thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. And hey, come on, 57, 37, what's the difference? You know what I mean?
As long as my hair stays in my head for as long as I can keep it.
Hey, there you go.
I can fake it a little bit, I guess. So tell us how you started. I know you were interested. You went to film school. Growing up, were you engaged in karate and some other sports, but what was it like growing up? I mean, how did you how'd you find the world of film?
Oh man, I always wanted to be a filmmaker, and it's funny. Obviously, the Karate Kid and my life as a martial artist. Obviously, there's no secret there. The Bruce Lee films and all that, Bloodsport, all that stuff I grew up watching. So I knew I wanted to be a martial artist. I started that at 13 and never looked back. And then a filmmaker, I knew I wanted to be since I was like 3 years old. But I'm just this kid from East Texas. Yeah. And I'm like, how do you do that?
Well, wait a minute. You told me into it, but you did some acting too. Acting didn't come before 3 years old. You want to be a filmmaker. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to be an actor too at that time. It's interesting. I stopped acting when I was like 27. So I had that bug for a long time. But storytelling was where it was at for me.
Okay.
Directing, filmmaking. And I don't know. It's just weird. I'm blessed in the sense that I just knew what I wanted to do my entire life.
That to waste time that way when you're lucky like that. But you went to film school. You ended up going to film school. What's that like? I mean, there's a lot of people. Everybody's trying to end up making films. You actually did it.
Hey, it was great. I went to Stephen F. Austin State University. It's in Nacogdoches, Texas. And it's a wonderful, wonderful film school there. Small university, but I mean, it was only 45 minutes away from where I live. Can you believe it? Like I'm in the woods of East Texas and I'm making movies. It blew my mind.
Just like that.
Like it was literally down the road. And I didn't have to go to LA or New York, which I eventually did go to LA. I went to film school and I wouldn't trade that for the world. Made a lot of mistakes there. That way I wouldn't make them in the industry.
I'm going to tell you, the whole key with that is just don't keep making them. Make them
right. Right.
And you can make the small ones, but the backbreaking ones, sometimes you don't recover. But, you've surrounded yourself with some very people who trod the rarefied air. So tell us, so you got out of school and you directed 4 feature films, became an actor. You worked on many others. You worked on sets. You call them indies, right?
Yeah.
What's an indie compared to like a studio movie?
Well, like the independent features, it's independently funded. like that's what I started directing, and I was starring in those like independent features, but I was working as a peon pretty much on studio films, like as an extra, a stand-in, a photo double, and eventually I had some speaking roles in films, but I just realized acting wasn't for me. But
Right.
those experiences, were wonderful, working on a Brad Pitt movie, even though I'm like literally at the bottom of the totem pole. So those experiences translate into the indie film world, where I would make feature films in Texas and Louisiana, and independently funded. And then from there, I went to Hollywood, and that's where I got into the documentaries. So now we do both. I haven't done a feature in a while because I kind of been staying busy with the documentaries. But
I have to ask you though, I have to interject. Coming from Texas to Hollywood, what kind of indoctrination was that for you? Was that kind of like a shell shocker by any means?
yeah, but I mean, I'm a Hollywood kind of guy. Like I always loved California, and I wanted to be out there. And now I bought a lake house in Texas.
Nice.
I got out of California for a while, but I'll be bouncing back and forth because that is my industry, and those are my people out there. And I love LA. I'm rooting for California, but Texas is my heart.
I'm going to stop you right there, though. I'm going to tell you about America and the world. Ultimately, and I can tell you this because I've been around longer than you, things aren't that your worst fears are not going to kill you because they haven't. We're still here. So all will be well. And, America is like the superhero. We mentioned superheroes. Like the superhero Wolverine. Wolverine gets stabbed and shot and blown up, and he heals really quick. Well, America's like that, too. It gets beat up, knocked down, and it always rises and kind of rebuilds. That's just my little quasi-political statement for tonight.
Hey, I love it. I love it.
So tell us, this is the coolest thing, how you did this, because I kind of do this too. Some people ask, how do you get all these people on here? Tell them I just call them, and I'm earnest, and I don't lie. I hate to say that because that kind of suggests that maybe I did it one time, but I don't. And, people can take a pickup on that, and people are people. So very famous director, John Avildsen, and he was the one who directed Rocky and the Karate Kid. What did you do with that situation? You just kind of approached them, right? Tell us about how you did that.
Yeah, I was about to shoot my last feature film I've done. It's a horror film. And I just kind of got on YouTube one day, prepping, and looking for inspiration. And I looked up different interviews for directors, and I came across John Avildsen, who happened to be my favorite director because he made my two favorite films of all time, Rocky and the Karate Kid. So I sent him a message through YouTube. I don't know if you can still do that, but the next day he replied. Wow. He sent me a message back, and boom, we just kind of hit the ground running and became friends. And I offered him a couple of scripts. He turned me down.
Why do you think because I'm sure he gets all kinds of nut jobs and who knows what. Why do you think he responded to you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that when you're at that caliber, people always want something from you, or they just want to fan out. My email to John was just half fan, half business. It was like, hey, this is who I am. I'm a filmmaker, and this is what I feel about you and your films. And it just, I don't know, it was like meant to be, so to speak. We just lost Eddie Van Halen. It would be kind of like a young guitarist who looks up to Eddie Van Halen, reaches out to Eddie responds, mentors the kid, and then he passes away. That's kind of what happened with John Avildsen and I. Rest in peace.
Sometimes I posit this, not often. The two big figures on the MTFU site are Arnold and Rocky. And I think I did mention once, what will your feelings be when these guys, I hope never, but when they pass? And, even though you don't know them personally, they're so ingrained in your, growing up and whatnot. I can't imagine it. I really can't. But I see what you're saying there. So you developed a relationship with the director for years before you did any work with him. So what happened with that when you finally said, hey, man, let's do a documentary?
Well, it was actually the opposite. He was in my life, or I was in his life, for 5 years. And in those 5 years, 3 of those years, we were making this documentary. So I knew him for probably 6 months before I came up with the idea to do the documentary on him. And it was only after he turned me down to direct a couple of my scripts. So I just hung in there, and I was like, hey, man, I really want to work with you. So I came up with the idea to do a documentary on him, and he's like, all right, let's do it.
You produced King of the Underdogs, and let me ask you, it's fitting because you got Rocky and you got Ralph Macchio and the Karate Kid. Was he himself an underdog? I don't know a lot about him, but did he have to rise, or was he already set up? Or as far
John he came from a silver spoon, and we talk about that in the doc. Is that his family was wealthy, his father was a self-made man, so John didn't have to struggle by any means. But I think he was an underdog in other ways. He kind of when it comes to Hollywood, he was kind of a Hollywood underdog. But in life, not really. But for some reason, his dad really instilled the power of the underdog into John. Most rich kids, they wouldn't even care. John cared, and that was very special about him.
That's rare, and you see in business. I've had businesses. I've never had a job interview. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I've always had to have businesses. And I could say this: I've seen many. I've seen some where the kids, the father wants to pass the business off, or either the kids don't want it or they screw it up, and it's always invariable. It's very rare that you see they plug themselves in and continue it. I do want to mention one thing for everyone listening, best question or interaction, and we'll get some. These will be on for a while. I'll send you a copy of my book. I'll sign it or write something in that for you. Not that my signature is worth anything, but I don't know. Some people want insults. I don't know. People are nuts. And of course, Derek's got some really cool Rocky merch, and I was telling him, even if I didn't know him or talk to him, I would buy this stuff. It's really cool, and it's unique. It's new stuff, and we're going to put his contact info. He'll tell you how you can get some of that stuff, but that's later. So you produced this documentary, and how long did that take?
King of the Underdogs, probably about 3 years, but only because a year and a half of that was actually shooting, editing, all that stuff, and another year and a half of that was getting it right for John. He was such a perfectionist. And I mean, he gave me probably 1,000 notes, and I think I incorporated all of them.
Was he involved in, I guess you call them the dailies and stuff? He wants to see every day what's going on, or
no? He let me be. Yeah, but yeah, when I showed him, when we started getting into showing him different cuts of it, though, of the film, that's when he started really giving me his notes. But he basically just let my team and I, Chris May is my producing partner and one of my best friends. He let Chris and I just run with it, and then he gave us his notes.
So how many hours do you actually shoot? And you were telling me it could take years, and you end up with like an hour and a half or 2 hours. I mean, how many hours do you shoot?
Well, it depends. I mean, we did the Frank Stallone documentary, which is coming out in January.
Oh, cool! Yeah,
it's called Stallone Frank. That is, we filmed that over the course of, probably several months. We did about 50 interviews. King of the Underdogs with John Avildsen, we filmed about 40 interviews in about 9 months. So it just really depends, because you're working on people's schedules. Naturally, I would love to film everyone in like a month, but you're traveling the United States and in some cases the world to get that particular interview. So
how do you plan out the logistics of this? Because this has got to be monolithic. What I'm thinking in my head, you got to line all these people up. You got to set up the traveling, your equipment, the people. I mean, do you have somebody managing that for you, or do you do it all? I mean, or do you have a network of people?
It just depends. Like we try to keep our crews pretty small because it's a documentary. But like Chris, like I mentioned, Chris May, my producing partner, has a really good hand in helping schedule, because I try to stay on the creative side, and Chris handles more of the I don't know, the day-to-day, I hate to say day-to-day operations, but the business side. He's the guy that's behind the guy that's like getting it all done. So when I get to set, say that we got to travel to New York and shoot like 5 interviews, Chris is handling all that. So when I get there, my brain is in the game, and I don't have to worry about anything, and we get the interview. So it really just depends, and we keep our crews. We've been on set where it was just 2 of us, and we've been on set when there was 10 of us. But when I do a feature film, I think I've ran crews of like 50 to 100, so it just depends.
So it is that element. You have the really, really good people around you, or a few key people who know the deal, and you don't really have to explain things that much, because that's, I've hired people, totally different business, but you want somebody you don't have to check on them all the time. That's a big key, because otherwise you just got somebody plugging a hole. It's a warm body, and you're doing all those jobs anyhow. I guess micromanaging. Because the time is an element. I mean, isn't that a big thing? You're burning up time. I've heard that about movies. Or is that true? I mean, if you're losing,
absolutely.
Time,
yeah, you've got a budget and you've got a schedule, and yeah, you don't want to micromanage. But I'll say this: being a director, it is one of the last dictatorships out there. Where everybody's okay with it, because I try to have my hand in everything, because it's my vision. But I also respect everybody as a professional. Let them do their thing.
So Derek, the director is the top of the food chain. The director is
creatively, the top of the food chain is really the producers.
Okay.
And I'm a director and a producer, so that works out.
What is it? I gotta ask. What does a producer do? I have to know that.
Producer, basically, okay. So when you watch the Oscars, Best Picture goes to the producers, not the director, because they're the guys that go out, they raise the money, or sometimes fund it themselves. They put the whole thing together, not necessarily creatively. Now there's creative producers, and then there's just straight up business producers. You can be both or one or the other, but they're in charge of seeing the production through from start to finish. And that's really where the power is. I like to do both, because I don't know. It's my nature, but I'm okay with just directing or just producing. It just depends on the project.
Do the producers ever pressure you because they put the money up, like, what's going on? We want to see this. Or do they try to exert creative pressure? We don't like how this is going, or whatever. Is that a matter of you choosing the right ones, or how does that work out?
I think that when I was first starting out, that happened a lot, because I think a lot of them weren't really real producers or financiers. They just would jump in the game, and I think they were a little power hungry. And then now I'm still making movies. They're not.
Yeah.
But now you weed them out and you find your team and your core people, and I don't ever have to worry about that. I mean, my financiers, they just let me do my thing, and I'm really appreciative of that. But for starting out, that's usually never the case.
I don't know how long it's going to take, but you're going to make it to the top, man, because you've got time. You've got a good track record already. As long as you don't get hit by a meteorite or anything, or get killed, or I don't know, who the hell knows. Life is.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Somebody was saying about the safety of the people. I go, you can never be safe. You can't go out of your house. You got to getting things done. You've got amazing. Listen. I'm trying to get Arnold on here, and I believe I can, but you've got to position. It's all about positioning, and people. You and I were talking about this off camera. Is it true that you're trotting this rarefied air? You're with Stallone. We're going to talk about him in a few minutes. People see that. Oh, Derek's just kicking it with all those big time people. He's got it made. But they don't. It's like that. It's like that proverbial iceberg. You can see the tip. You don't see all the hard difficulties underneath the water. I mean, you mentioned the red carpet. People see you, in resplendent in the suit and on the red carpet. Hey man, you're really styling. But they don't see all the grind. I mean, it's mostly grind, right?
Absolutely, it's 90% grind, 95% grind. Yeah, I had a friend tell me one time. He goes, You're on this red carpet and people are seeing your social media and they go, oh, he's just playing. But what they don't realize is what it took to get there.
What do they mean by that?
Playing is like when I moved to California, I was like so happy to be there. And I'm like, I'm filming on these awesome film sets and meeting all these people and all this stuff, but they don't know what it took to make all of that happen.
Right.
And that's the thing about movies. It's not just button pushing. It's a whole team of people that really work hard for a very long time so they can have that red carpet moment or that movie premiere and entertain you. So a lot of hours, like Arnold. I interviewed Arnold for Stallone Frank, that is. And And he was so.
Did you meet him in person, or how does that work? Do you do?
Yeah. No, yeah. I went to Gold's Gym, and he was
cool.
well, he was cool. He was like, why don't we shoot it at the gym? And we're like, yeah. I mean, Arnold at the gym, of course. It's better than him sitting in a chair. So when you see the movie, when it comes out in January, you get to see Arnold and Frank working out, and we interviewed him there. He was awesome.
No, that's so cool.
It's so much better. And I remember Arnold, after I interviewed him and we spent the morning together and all that, and I was leaving, he goes, hey, by the way, you liked that we did it at the gym, right? And I go, oh, right. He's an actor. He's looking for And I go, yeah, man. I mean, I would have had you sitting in a director's chair, and that's it.
Yeah.
Here we are. We have all of this of you working out, and he was so cool, man.
They say that the iconic pictures of him, the black and white pictures from the 70s, were so good because there was a photographer named Artie Zeller, and he used to just go down to the gym, and it was different back then in the 60s and 70s. But he used to just take pictures when they didn't, they were real pictures. They weren't posing, and the venue was the gym, which is where they were artisans in the gym. And that's why it worked out so well like that, pumping iron, all that stuff. And, really, that's so cool that the stuff you're doing now is really historic because, someday, if the math works out, they'll be gone. You'll be an old man, and you'll remember that you actually interact. And, you're recording this not only for posterity, but really, for history too. I mean, how do you look at it as far as your craft and what you're doing? Do you think it's more than just entertainment as far as what you put into this?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I never knew I would fall into documentaries. I'm a narrative feature film guy. I want to make movies, and that's what I did.
What's narrative feature film?
A narrative feature film is a movie. Is a 2-hour movie like Rocky. Rocky's a narrative feature film. That's what I want to do, is make movies. But what's interesting is with documentaries, you can still make it feel like a movie. And that's what my team and I set out to do. We want every every documentary to feel like a film. And at the same time, we're teaching the audience, we're raising questions, we're answering questions, we're informing you of our subject, whatever our subject is. Like my latest documentary, on my hat here, the Rocky documentary, it's information and entertainment. And for that, you kind of mentioned for posterity, it's something that generations to come can learn from and be entertained by. I tell my 15-year-old nephew, when I explained to him Arnold and Sly.
Oh, time out. Speaking of the youngster, I didn't ask you, but are you married, kids, anything like that?
No. I'm single and no kids at the moment. So
I'm going to tell you, listen, I'm not against anything, but you're in a good position because you have a lot more freedom to do things and get things done. And I'm not against any, some people do it with families and stuff, but I don't know if that was by design. I'm looking up stuff while we talk. I don't know if that was by design, but would you agree as far as that goes?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely, I have more time for my career. And that's probably one of the reasons why I am single and no kids at this point. But because, the career thing, and, I'm from a small town. Most people from town, you get married, you go to college, you graduate, you go to college, you get married, you have kids. And I want to make movies, but I just dropped my
that's okay.
phone there. Hold on.
That's because we're real. It's good that this stuff happens, actually.
That's true. See, that's an outtake for let me see. Yeah, I'm on my phone, not my computer. Okay, so but we were talking about my 15-year-old nephew. So I explained to him Dwayne Johnson. I said, look, The Rock is your generation's Arnold and Sly. And I said, so I was explaining this to him. So he gets it. I was like, what he is to your generation, these guys were to my generation.
You're right. That's actually true. And they say that The Rock kind of supplanted Arnold. I think Is that true?
That he kind of what?
The Rock supplanted Arnold's position.
Well,
as far as
I think the Rock is a mixture of both Arnold and Sylvester, and he'll tell you that. Like he's inspired by both, but you got to look at something like those guys have like 12 million Instagram followers or something like that. Dwayne has 200 million. That just shows where we are.
That's mind-boggling. My God.
It is. But when you think about 30 years ago, they would have had the same amount, you know? So it's just, but their audience is older. Their fans are older. So
right.
Has the torch been passed? Oh, sure. For sure.
So as far as the Appleton documentary, King of the Underdogs, that didn't go to Netflix, but you had some different platforms as far as how that was, distributed.
Yeah, it's out there on iTunes and Amazon and YouTube. I mean, it's out there in the digital world.
Was he happy with the final? He was happy with the final product.
Yeah, it's very bittersweet. The last time I saw John was at the world premiere, and he had seen the film a gazillion times, so he was very happy. But he actually passed away a month and a half before it was released worldwide.
Oh, man.
So he got to see the film, be a part of it, but he didn't get to see how the world reacted to it, and that was very sad.
Really, I mean, I'm not one to patronize anyone, but I have you on here for a reason, because you are very successful. You work at a rarefied level. I think it's very important to see people here, to see what guys like you are doing and what can be done, because you're working with you're working with very iconic people who can exert extreme influence, and they trust you. Realize them. I don't know if that's the right word, but so getting to Stallone, how did that come about? Because we want to hear about that, and anything you could tell us, because I know. Well, first of all, tell us about the documentary. You're going through. Is it the 8 movies that you go through, the 40 years? Is that what you chronicle?
Actually, no. It's only about the original Rocky. I'll give you a quick story on that. So I interviewed Sly for King of the Underdogs, and then I befriended his brother Frank, and just randomly, and I would run into Sly randomly, and it was just kind of like we were all kind of like converging in a weird way.
Are you talking like in the neighborhood or on sets, or where would you run?
Yeah, like around like Beverly Hills and stuff like that. And so I would see Sly and I'd be like, remind him of who I was.
I just have to notarize my friend Pete Ash. He's a great guy. He's lost 100 pounds. I bet you, Pete, you've lost more, because I haven't seen you because of COVID. You look good, man. You look slim, and he's got my T-shirt on in his profile picture. So I got to give him props. But no, thank you. Thanks for the great job comment. But a good young guy like this doing good work, it's easy. Really, because I'm in great company right now. And Pete, we don't really, mostly bodybuilders. Nothing wrong with that. We've had a couple of NFL guys, a couple of Hollywood people, but this is different. But thanks, Pete. I'm glad you're here. So I'm sorry.
Oh, it's fine. Hey, Pete, how you doing, Pete? So I would bump into him, and then we decided to do the Frank Stallone doc. Well, Sly invited Chris May and I to his house to show him King of the Underdogs, because he's in it. And Frank took us over there, and so we show Sly this movie. He loves it. He immediately, as the credits are rolling, comes up with the idea and offers us to do 40 years of Rocky.
Is that right there? Wow.
Right there in his house.
Wow. You aired it at his house?
Yeah. We watched King of the Underdogs like there in his man cave. And from
let's go back for a second, though. The first time you met Rocky on the set, what was that like? Because, I've met a lot of people, but I think I'd be a little nervous.
It was the best day I've ever had on any set ever, because everything was smooth. Everything was so perfect. Nothing went wrong. And he was very charming, and it was just a perfect day.
But what could go wrong when you say nothing went wrong?
Well, the only thing that did go wrong is his phone went off, and that was funny. But I mean, hey, lights could have not worked, microphones, he could have, we could have been late, he could have been late. There's so many different things that could have gone wrong. But I always joke that the only thing that happened was his phone went off. Of course, we didn't use it, but it was funny. Everything was just perfect.
So he saw that. He saw the work you did and what you put together and the story that you told and the way you packaged it. And right there, because was he already thinking about a documentary?
That I can't tell you. I think it was just, it came out on the fly. I think it just kind of happened. I don't know. I'd have to ask him. But yeah, it was like literally the credits are rolling of King of the Underdogs, and he's already pitching me 40 Years of Rocky, the birth of a classic.
But okay, so when he did that, because I'm pretending I'm you right now. Like when I give advice to patients and stuff, it's very important. Crappy advice is when you give somebody advice based upon what if it was you. I pretend I'm that person. That's good advice because, you look at the situation, you're fair, you're honest. So I'm pretending I'm you. Did you think that he was just kind of caught in the moment and he'd forget about it? Or, were you like, geared up because, he was really serious and he followed through?
No, you could tell. He's that kind of guy. When it's in here, when it happens, he's in. And plus before that, months before that, he had asked Frank to ask me to ask John Avildsen if I could put together a bunch of the home movies that John had shot from Rocky. So he had already had like 2 hours.
What are the home movies from Rocky? What are those?
So John Avildsen on the set during rehearsals and during the making of Rocky, he filmed all these rehearsals and all these home movies.
Wow.
So that's literally what 40 Years Rocky, The Birth of a Classic, or Becoming Rocky, depending on where you are in the world, is. It's these home movies. So Sly asked me to put them together on a Blu-ray and send them to him, so I did. So I think that might have been, he may have been thinking about it before because he had all that footage that I gave him.
Right.
But needless to say, that's what we made our documentary on. And it was #1 in the UK when it came out in June. It was like #10 in the US. Wow. People are eating this thing up.
And these are like elements and snippets and parts of filming that people have never seen before, heretofore, as far as up to that point.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of footage that has been seen, but there's quite a bit that has never been seen. So it's a good mixture of home movies, and the whole thing is home movies and Sly narrating these home movies.
No kidding. So now you're working with Sly. How long was this relationship? Were you working with him every day for months, or did you just kind of grab him for a week?
No. So for 40 Years of Rocky, like literally we did his narration in one take.
Wow.
Like that's how much of a pro he is. He just
wait,
did it one take.
Is that what he wanted, or that's all you needed?
That's all I needed. It was so organic. It was so perfect. If we had scripted it or anything like that, it would have been stiff.
No,
he just went with it. And I would send him a cut and he would give notes and whatnot. And kind of like that's what he does. Like with these documentaries, like King the Underdogs, he gave notes. Stallone Frank he gave notes. He's really good at giving notes and input, and it's always just the best.
What do you mean by notes? Like what do you do with the notes?
Well, like you could cut this differently. How about if you took it and you did this? And it's just little filmmaking, editing notes to kind of make it flow better, things like that.
I want to mention for the people watching over Derek's, I think it's his left shoulder. He's got a nice portrait of Rocky, I think, beating somebody up.
Yeah, my good friend John Rivoli painted that, and he is to my knowledge, and John, if you're watching, forgive me if I get it wrong. He's like the only official Rocky artist with MGM. So everything he paints that's Rocky is officially licensed. And
is that an original?
That's like one of his. I can't remember the word of the type of print. He's gonna laugh when he sees this because I can't remember. But it's a certain type of print. It's not like a copy, if that makes sense. It's some sort of. I mean, obviously it's a
Oh,
copy.
I understand how prints work. Right. There's
Yeah, I can't think of the word.
It's usually a limited series. They only print a certain number of them.
Yeah. This is 3 out of 500 is what it
Wow.
says.
Oh,
On
yours
there.
is number 3. Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So to understand this, with Albertson, you interviewed up to 50 people, so there was a lot of traveling. It sounds like this was more like you just had, Sly come to his, to your studio, and you already had all the film from Albertson, so you didn't really have to travel as much. Is that true with this one?
For King of the Underdogs?
No. I'm talking about for 40 years of
sorry, for 40 years of Rocky. Yeah, we didn't no traveling. It's literally just what I did was Sly was like, take all this footage, edit it together, and I'll narrate it. So I said, awesome. So we started at 60. By the way, it's only a 30-minute documentary, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
So
were you when you would turn work into him at first, were you nervous? Like, because listen, this is kind of, big time stuff, or maybe not.
No, I don't really get nervous in that sense. I think more just excitement. Like it's like, wow, this is cool. Like this is happening. But so I did 60 minutes. It wasn't working. I mean, how are you going to have a little 7-year-old kid sit there for 60 minutes and watch home movies, right? So I tried it at 45 minutes. It wasn't working. So I'm like,
what do you mean by it wasn't working? What does that mean?
It was redundant. Some of the footage was like, it was just so repetitive, right?
But you know what, Derek? Is it hard for you to see that because you're in it? Do you need someone else to tell you that?
I think we all do. I think even Steven Spielberg needs that. But I'm to the point now where I can pretty much gauge it. So it was coming out of my own instincts, my own gut, that this is too long. So Sly goes, make it 30 minutes, done, end of story. And I said, okay, let me try that. Did it at 30 minutes, perfect. It couldn't have been better. Now, a lot of fans are upset that it's only 30 minutes and it only covers the original. It's fine. It's this nugget of Sylvester Stallone narrating footage. It's great, I think.
Speaking of your friends and people looking at it from the outside in, how do people react to you with your success? I mean, do people support you, or they pretty much back you, or are there some people who are naysayers or they're negative? I mean, maybe you're not even around those types of people. I know that happens sometimes when you start to rise.
And thank you. You're very kind with those words and stuff. I think that
No. I'm saving all the bad stuff for the end, though.
Well, there you go.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I think you weed them out. I mean, I can think of several people who probably seethe, but I just kind of got past them, and you weed them out after a while because people are going to hate. But also some of those people from my past that perhaps wouldn't, or kind of envious or whatever, come back around and they're like, hey man, we're really proud of you. And I'm like, I'm proud of you too. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. It's like, but yeah, there's some of that, but for the most part, I mean, I tell you what you do is it's really simple. It's all about social media. You kind of know who is on your team and who's not. Not saying that the people that aren't on your team are going to say it. You just don't hear from them. So
that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, they disappear.
Yeah. They fall away. You're living in truth. You found your truth. There's no superficiality, and if they are like that, it's not congruent. So I found, I got a chapter in my book about that. But what's the number one takeaway? You must have learned, I would imagine, or I would think you learned some stuff from Stallone. I mean, what was a takeaway, or what are some of those elements that now you're thinking on a different level? You're not wasting as much time, perhaps. What can you tell us there?
Oh man, well, his work ethic for one is insane. But like, I'll give you an anecdote. We were picture this: we're in Sly's screening room. It's Frank, Chris May, myself, and Sly. And Frank positioned me next to Sly on purpose because we were going to watch the rough cut of Stallone Frank that is, okay? Frank knew that Sly was going to give me notes through this whole thing. So I've got in my ear, I've got Sylvester Stallone right here whispering notes in my ear through the whole thing, which was the whole idea. Frank knew what he was doing. It's his brother. He knows.
Right. Are they close?
Oh, they're too close. They're freaking, those guys are animals, man. They're like best buds. They have a great relationship going on.
Once you explain this, talk a little about Frank, because he's an interesting guy too, and you're doing some work with him. So you know, with Stallone, with Sly, you can continue on with that, please.
Oh well, you know, I learned a lot from Sly, but as far as mentorship and notes and all that stuff, Frank is my boy. Frank is he's like a wild west guy. Like he's like from another era. And he's such a loose cannon, and I say that with like endearment. That's where he and Sly are so different. Sly's very like structured and da-da-da-da-da-da. Frank's kind of all over the place and super talented. And I love just watching both of them together. Like when they're in a room together, they both have these huge personalities. So I love Frank. He's a dear friend, and Frank and I were friends before we made this doc on him. And I think the world is going to see a different Frank Stallone. When you watch this movie, you're going to go, he did that? Wait, he did that? And he did this? And he could do that? I kind of joke with Frank. He's kind of like a very intelligent Forrest Gump. Okay, now what I mean by that is Forrest Gump, you watch that movie, of course he wasn't intelligent, but he keeps, all these crazy things keep happening to him. He's meeting presidents and he becomes a billionaire and all this stuff. That's Frank.
No kidding.
But Frank's very, very intelligent. Frank has a story he knows everybody and he's done everything. Wait till you see this doc. He's a fascinating guy.
Is he older or younger?
He's 4 years younger than Sly.
Oh, he is. And is there any, does he have any, I don't know what the word is, but, you know, did he ever try to make it in movies like Sly or no? It just wasn't in the cards?
Yeah. Frank's a very good actor. He, and we hit on that in the doc, but he's a singer. I mean, Frank right. He's a singer, he's a musician, he's a songwriter. That's his thing. But yeah, he's done quite a bit of movies actually, and he's really good.
A little bit of sadness here. How do they react to their mom dying? I'm sure it was. I mean, she was pretty old, but 96.
Yeah, 98, I believe. Wow. Very sad. I mean, you know, Frank put it to me this way, and I don't want to talk too much about that because I want them to have their privacy. But Frank said something really sweet. He said, when you've known someone, because he's 70, when you've known someone 70 years, much less your mother, that got me. Yeah. And she was cool, man. She was a cool lady. So I'm very sad for them.
Did you deal with her at all? Did you speak to her ever? Or?
Yeah. I interviewed her for his documentary, and she was just a character, man. Really cool lady.
Any interesting anecdotes about anybody that you might have interviewed that stand out?
Oh wow. Let's see. We talked about Sly, Jackie, Frank, Arnold, Avildsen. Oh man, there's so many. What
was Arnold's general take on Frank? Because I know years ago they were rivals. Now they're pretty good friends, I guess.
Oh, he loves Frank. It's almost like kind of like Sly and Frank, like little brother kind of thing. Like you're like, let me grab Frank and give him a noogie kind of thing. You could just see the respect that they have for one another. And he said the nicest things about Frank in the documentary. Absolutely.
Well, it's good that it works out that way because getting it from you're there. You know these guys. You're friends with them. And it's important to I don't like to disseminate false information or anything like that. I just would rather remain quiet. And what was I going to ask you? So as far as that documentary, so it's the making of the first film. It's the actual production behind the scenes. And did you talk to Adrian
Oh, Talia Shire.
Yeah.
So 40 Years of Rocky's just Sylvester, just him
Oh,
narrating. But Talia, we have a whole Rocky segment in the John Avildsen documentary and in the Frank Stallone documentary. So I've interviewed Talia. She's in both of those, maybe twice now. So she's just another wonderful, wonderful person. I love Talia. Just a total sweetheart and an underrated actress.
Have you found that they're happy to talk about, sometimes, from what I see, some stars don't want to talk about what they did in the past, but are they happy to talk about this? It's still endearing to them?
Oh, sure. I mean, I asked Avildsen one time, I was like, what's it like having to say the same answers?
Yeah.
And he goes, you'll understand one day. And believe me, I'm not nowhere near their level, but you do start to find a pattern in your.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Thank you. You start to find a pattern in your answers, and
right.
But I've yet to meet anyone that didn't like what they were talking about, that didn't have it in their heart. I mean, these are real deal people that really love whatever it is I'm interviewing them about, whether it's Frank, Rocky, Avildsen, etc. For sure.
Where do you rank being a movie film producer, director, guy? Forgive my vernacular because I'm not, I'm just some guy in a room in Connecticut, for God's sake. Where do you put Rocky in the pantheon of movies? What does it mean?
Oof. It's just transcended. No, I'm not going to go there. I'll tell you exactly what. Okay, this is where I see it. It's like Casablanca. It's so rewatchable. It's iconic. It's never going to die. Wizard of Oz, all these films back from that era, Rocky is that for this era. So I don't know how to put it any other way. I mean, it has just changed the whole way we see movies, and look what it's done for so many people's lives. I mean,
yeah.
I put it up there with Casablanca. I mean, it's just going to be rewatchable and rewatchable and rewatchable. It'll never die, ever.
Was Avildsen the one who was responsible when when Sly was running up the steps, the Philadelphia, what's that, the library there? Or
the art museum.
Okay. I think it might have been Sly talking about this on some show I was watching, and somebody developed some type of gyroscope or something for the camera where they were able to run with it, and it showed like a steady picture. Am I describing this correctly?
Yeah. It's called the Steadicam, and it was invented by Garrett Brown, who is from Philadelphia. And Avildsen had seen a demo that Garrett had shot, and we cover this in King of the Underdogs and in 40 Years of Rocky, and thought, well, that's how we can accomplish that stuff, because in Garrett's demo reel, he had his, I think, girlfriend at the time running those stairs. So there's footage before Sylvester does it of her running up those stairs, and it's just smooth. And Garrett has gone on he revolutionized the industry. I mean, he has really changed the way we see cinema.
Is he still around?
He still is.
Oh,
and
good.
Just a wonderful, very, very intelligent man. And he's gone on to invent quite a few other things in the cinematic world.
Did Sly, in your interview, in his voiceover or whatever he was describing, did he talk about the money they offered him? That whole thing where they didn't want him, and they got up to a certain number, and he had to sell his dog and all that.
We don't hit on that per se in 40 Years of Rocky, but we do talk about how you'll see, like, at the bottom of the screen, they're called lower thirds. Like, there's little trivia that pops up, and one of them is how he had $106 in his bank account and his dog was starving.
Oh man!
And then all of a sudden, boom! That all changed overnight.
Yeah. Wow. And he got his dog back, I think, right? I mean, he sold it and he bought it back or something like that. And that was the dog in the movie. And the turtles are still alive, right?
Yeah, They are, and I thought that was a joke when I saw it online. No, they're really genuinely still alive. Crazy.
And you
Crazy.
said you still FaceTime with Sly here and there.
Yeah. He'll FaceTime me every once in a while, and he's just a great guy, man.
Hey man, if anybody comes in your house and they're bugging you, you can just tell them, look, I'm FaceTime with Sly right now. You're gonna just have to wait. You know, the words carry some help. Ray Best, a good member. Talia was a relative unknown actress when the original Rocky came out. Were there big name actresses they auditioned for the part?
Yeah, well, now remember, Ray, she had done The Godfather, so she had already had an Oscar nomination for The Godfather Part 2, but she still was in that Godfather world, and Rocky was, obviously put her in another world. But to answer your question, I can't remember exactly who all auditioned. Gosh, the real Rocky fans, like I'm a filmmaker, I'm a fan, but I also have other interests and all that. But my friends that are straight up Rocky fans are going to kill me because I can't think right now. I can say this. I do believe that the original Adrian, I think, was written to be Jewish and not Italian. I believe
in the movie.
In the script. And I think it was John Avildsen and not Sly that changed her to Italian. So I know that, but I can't think of who. I'm sorry, Ray. I just can't think right now.
No, that was a good question, Ray. Thanks. And somebody just said that they want Bert Young to play Rocky at one point. This is one of those anonymous Facebook user people here.
So Bert was always, I believe, always Paulie. He actually, I think, he signed on, like, I want to say first, like, it was like a big deal. Like, he was because he was in Chinatown a couple years before. He was kind of a big deal, Bert was.
Yeah.
And so they had to, like, really make sure they got him.
That was Bert Young, right?
Bert Young played Paulie. Uh-huh.
Did you interview him at all?
Yeah, I've interviewed him twice now.
And how does he feel about, how did Rocky affect his life? It had to help.
Oh, man. Yeah. He's forever Paulie, I mean, Bert's great. He's just a really fun, nice, sweet man. I remember the first time I interviewed him, they had some spaghetti, very, very Italian. He's like, you want some spaghetti? He wanted to make sure we ate spaghetti. And we were like, no, we're good. We're good. We've already eaten. He's like, sure, we got meatballs. I'm like, no, we're good.
And Mac, a good member for a long time. Do you know anything about the training and diet Sly did to prepare for the first Rocky?
Sort of. So for the first Rocky, hi Ken, for the first Rocky, it was John Avildsen who said he's watching these rehearsals that we've that he recorded, and he goes, guys, to Sly and Carl. He goes, guys, you're not doing that good. This boxing, it's not looking great. Plus, you could lose a few pounds.
No kidding.
So Avildsen said, you could lose a few pounds. Like, remember, this is going to last.
He said this to Sly. Really?
Yeah. So
what was his reaction to that?
He understood, because remember, at this time, he's a hungry actor.
Yeah.
And he really listened to John, and he knew, wait, John's right. Film lasts forever. If I've got a little bit on my belly, I need to get it off.
Derek, was John one of the people who didn't want him? Because I guess the studio really didn't want him. They really vehemently did not want him.
John wanted him.
He did.
Yeah. That's what's cool. When John read it, he was so charmed by the script that he didn't care. That he actually liked that it was an unknown actor, because that way he could mold him a little bit more and shape him.
When they were making that, did they know it was something special, or they just low budget, we're going to do our best, just try to get it done?
Frank Stallone talks about that, and Stallone Frank, that is, briefly, that he said, and I don't want to give too much away of that documentary, it's not out yet, but he said you could feel something. You didn't know what, but you could feel it while he would watch the dailies with his brother, or he would, just being on set, you could feel something was special.
That's important because, a lot of people go through life and they're always waiting for the special thing to happen, but sometimes you're already in it and you just don't realize it. And if you have that gift that it's something, and thanks, Ken. Yeah, Derek is a great guy. We're getting all kinds of, all the kind of stuff we really want to hear about. And, but, amazingly, you look at Rocky, like by Rocky 3, man, he was shredded. I was never a big bodybuilder. I actually won a contest when you could win at 6 feet, 180, but I was really ripped. In the 80s, you could get away with that. So I was looking at him like, oh my God, what a big, he went from Appleton telling him you got to lose a few pounds to being shredded. Why did he do that? Why was it such a strident change like that?
Well, I don't know specifically, but Sly, since he was 12 and a half years old, since he saw Hercules Unchained, Steve Reeves on the big screen, he knew he wanted to be physical. He knew that at an early age. So I don't know why he went from like kind of baby fat Rocky in 76 to insanely ripped Rocky 3. I don't know why, but it's pretty cool that he did because he completely transformed himself. But also, you had Rambo who worked as well with that body. I mean, can you imagine Rambo with the 1976 Rocky body? Wouldn't have,
I think he would have got killed quick in the forest there.
There you go.
I hate to say that. Why did you name it Stallone Frank? That is.
So actually, Frank named it that. He owns that name, and he's very proud. He always brags that he owns that name.
Wait, for both you guys, I'm lost here. What name are you talking about?
Oh, the documentary, Frank Stallone's documentary. It's called Stallone, Frank, that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's all Frank, because you got to think about it. Frank, when he would do movies and they'd put it on like the movie poster, it would say Stallone. And then underneath it'd be like Frank. So Stallone, Frank, that is. You're getting Frank, not Sylvester. Clever title.
Yeah, he's self-effacing. That's smart, because he's probably got that along the way, coattails and all that crap. But from what you say, he's got his own talent. And it's good that they really get along like that, You wouldn't necessarily always think that. Did you ever go down to Philly? Like all those, I know I saw something with Frank, Sly, he was down there. He went by the old gym and all the stuff is still down there. Did you go down there?
I've been obviously to like the Rocky Steps at the art museum and stuff, but a good friend of mine, Mike Kunda, he's like the #1 Rocky impersonator in Philly. And I want to take his tour. He actually does a Rocky film location tour. Wow. And every time I've been in Philly, I run out of time because I'm filming or I'm doing a movie premiere or something. But I want to go just to take that tour. It's called the Yo Rocky Film Tour, and yeah, pretty cool stuff.
I'd like to try. We're not far. We're only 3.5 hours. We should.
Oh, you totally should. Mike's the great. He's in character as Rocky. He's brilliant.
Is he the one that made some guy? I'm sorry, excuse me. He's a Rocky impersonator, and he made a little documentary about him. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So it's called The Pretender, and it's about Mike and my friend Jim.
That is him then.
Yeah, that's him. That's Mike.
Okay.
And my friend Jim Toscano, he directed that, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful film. And yeah, for sure, it's called The Pretender. I think you can see it on Amazon.
All right. So speaking of that, now with the Rocky, your Rocky documentary, that's going on Netflix, or it's on Netflix?
No. So 40 Years of Rocky is what it's called in the U.S. and it's Becoming Rocky outside the U.S.
Why is that? Why is there?
Unfortunately, we wanted it. And sorry if we're losing light in here. I can turn.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
So unfortunately, we wanted it to come out in 2016 for the 40th anniversary, but it actually came out in 2020, and we just didn't change the title in America.
Oh, I see.
Because a lot of legal stuff. But our distributor, who's in the UK, they were like, well, for the rest of the world, we're going to call it Becoming Rocky, The Birth of a Classic. Better title, I think. So that's why it has two titles. But it was actually picked up by MGM. they bought it and they're going to put it on their channel called Epix. I don't know if you heard of Epix. It's a streaming.
Yeah, I have. We have it here.
Yeah. So it'll be on that, but also it's currently on iTunes, Amazon. You can even go to becomingrocky.com and you can watch it from there. That's where our merch shop is, etc. So it's out there. It's available.
Let me ask you, when MGM, not that you need this, I'm going to put that in the stream here so people can go to that. You know, I'm one of those two-finger typists. That's how I type my book, but I've had some wrist injuries, and hey, I get it done. People laugh.
You get it done. There you go.
Well, done is my favorite word. When MGM buys your, is that kind of validating when a big studio like MGM calls you and says, we want to buy that?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, yeah, man. I sold a movie to MGM. I don't know. It's very cool.
When you do that, do you go through lawyers or do you negotiate or?
Yeah, you go through, you know, it's all legal and
So what do they do with it?
Well, they're going to put it on Epix. They haven't. Yeah. So they own Epix, and that's what they're going to do with it. But they also allowed us to put it out on iTunes and Amazon, all that kind of stuff. So
going forward, you're going to do any more work with Stallone, or you got those guys are like friends now? You're doing FaceTime, so.
Well, yeah.
Derek, can you call Sly if you have questions or you're doing something, or you're not a pest, but genuinely you need some help on something?
Oh, sure. He's always available to me, and he's and so is Frank, and John Avildsen was as well. I mean, when you get past that point, when you're over that you're in, and what I mean is, they trust me, and so we'll see. Obviously, I look like I swallowed the canary. There are things, but yeah. Anytime I need something, they're there. Same with like Ralph Macchio. He's a pal now. The Karate Kid.
Yeah.
All those Cobra Kai guys, like.
Oh, no kidding. That new Netflix show.
Isn't it brilliant?
Oh my God.
It's like all those guys, like you got to understand something. I'm this kid from East Texas. All right. I grew up on a lake in the pine trees, and now I'm friends with all the Rocky guys and all the Karate Kid guys. Are you kidding me? Like it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Surreal, man. That really, I understand what you're saying. I can't imagine it's not me. So you did some work with Ralph Macchio too?
Yeah, so all those Karate Kid guys, including Ralph, they're all in the John Avildsen doc because we cover Karate Kid 1, Karate Kid 2. John didn't want to cover Karate Kid 3 because it's not that great of a movie, but they're all of them are in that. Yeah, for sure.
And Ray's got another question. Why Talia's character? That might be beyond your scope, but
no, I know why. Basically, she's talking in Rocky Balboa, which is Rocky 6. Sly felt that in order to really grab the audience and him to have something to fight for, he needs to lose the one thing he loves the most, which is Adrian. So because if not, the story wouldn't be believable. So it's unfortunate that we didn't get to see Talia Shire again. But obviously, it works for that story. So that's kind of why he did it. It was unfortunate, but it was for the story. And
then he knocked off Paulie. It happens. You feel kind of bad, man, because you're attached. I admit it, because you're attached to these characters.
Oh, dude, you kidding me? He killed Mickey. He killed Apollo. He killed Adrian.
Yeah.
He killed Paulie. It's like, oh.
Don't cross Sly, man. When you're doing those FaceTimes, just be on your best behavior. So going forward, what's the plan for you, man? You want to be big time and doing big movies? You want to be like Scorsese?
For sure. And it's funny you mentioned Scorsese. He's also in King of the Underdogs, the Avildsen film. Because
hold on. So these guys all know you now. They know you're gunning and you're doing good stuff.
Look. Rest in peace, John Avildsen. Without him, hey, he gave me my shot in Hollywood, and now Sly has given me a shot in Hollywood, and it's just like, and I got to give Frank a shout out. It's like it's really, really cool. Because to answer your question, yeah, I want to be at that level. Scorsese, what's cool about him is he does feature films and documentaries. That's what I want to do, and we're getting there. We're getting there.
My aforementioned friend Rayhan Jalali, the trainer who trains Stallone, he said once that happened, there was like this metaphorical wall that encases Hollywood, and you can't get in there. But he helped them break through that wall. Once you're in there, just like you said, now you're trusted. That was something that you had to break through. Is that correct? I mean,
oh, absolutely. Because you got to think about, and I'm going to try to turn a light on here. You got to think about. Let's see if this helps at all. Because I was having natural light come in, but okay. So you got to think about all the people that want something from these guys, and
right.
It's like we all want something from someone, but I mean, I saw a guy come to one of Frank Stallone's shows. Frank always sells out his shows, and I've seen him perform like 20 times, and we were there filming that one night for the doc, and this guy actually walks up to our table, and Frank, when he finishes performing, he'll go to a lot of his friends' tables and stuff and say hi. Frank's done performing. He comes down. He's at our table, and we're talking. There was a guy that came in there, said, "Frank, I'm so-and-so. I have a script. I can get $1 billion from China, and I want your brother to direct it and star in it. What do you think?" Frank goes, "You're going to come to my show, and you're going to say that to me after I just performed?" The guy goes, "Well, you could do the music."
You know what that is? That's a wanton lack of self-awareness. That's what that is. And that's a very crucial component that a lot of people, they don't know how they come off, and I just yourself, you're putting you're destroying yourself. I've got my good friend Dr. Aaron Witten here. He wants to know, I would appreciate any insight into Tommy Morrison from Rocky V, anything you know about him.
Absolutely, Aaron.
Thanks, Doc. I'm glad you're here, man. You're always like a very introspective fellow.
So I actually at one time was attached to direct a feature film on Tommy, but it just fell through. And maybe it'll pick up one day. I don't know. It didn't have, not a documentary, because ESPN did a documentary on him, but a feature film, and it just fell apart. And I hope it picks back up. But Tommy, I thought he was wonderful in Rocky V, and John Avildsen came back from Rocky I to direct Rocky V. Now it's the worst Rocky. Everyone knows Rocky V is the worst.
I think Sly even says that, right?
Sure. It's bad. But Tommy is so good in it. Now this is a guy who is 20 years old. He's an actual boxer. He's not an actor. He nailed it. And I know that he and John Avildsen had a really good, profound respect for one another. And it's just sad that Tommy's no longer with us, nor John. But there's a kind of like a secret little Rocky V rough cut floating around the internet that is basically John's director's cut. And you get to see, it's better than what they released, and you see a little bit more about Tommy. Aaron, I hope that answered your question. I don't have a whole lot to say because I unfortunately didn't get to meet Tommy. I'm friends with his widow. She's the one that wants me to direct the movie on him. Again, it fell apart, but he was a really good kid, is what John Avildsen told me.
Derek, does Sly, in choosing him, Sly's a boxing fan, I'm sure. Did he ferret through all the boxers out there and he chose him? I mean, he found him?
Well, it was Frank Stallone, actually. Frank was, and I might get this wrong, Frank, but I believe Frank was watching Tommy box on TV and called Sly and said, "This is your guy."
Wow.
Just like that.
And he had the chops. He was able to pull it off. And he no acting talent or training or anything like that.
But here's something interesting. He is a great nephew or something like that. I can't remember what the order of John Wayne. Tommy.
Oh, I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
maybe it is ingrained in your genetic splicing or something. I don't know. So what do you got coming up now?
Oh man. Well,
Are
obviously,
you busy all the time, or are there times where there's a lull and you're doing some thinking upon what you're going to be doing next?
the pandemic kind of created a lull because there's just guidelines of filming and everything was shut down. I'm working on a secret project right now that I unfortunately can't talk about, but it's pretty cool. We're developing other documentaries and feature films, rewriting scripts, and we're kind of, again, the pandemic has put us on hold on a couple of our projects. So I'm working. I'll say this: I'm working. I'm busy. Can't talk about it, but it's pretty cool.
Listen, I'm glad you exist. I'm glad you're doing these good things, despite you mentioned, the COVID stuff, because the world doesn't stop. Like I said earlier, all will be well. You got to think that, because if you don't think that, you're not going to get out of bed and do anything. And we need people like you, builders, creating things. And maybe you'll create a Rocky movie sometime. And here I am talking to you. So if you ever see me selling pencils or something, give me some alms or whatever the hell those are.
Man, well, it's great talking to you, and I appreciate all the kind words. And maybe one day I'll get to interview you next time.
Oh, anytime, man. But listen, Derek has some really cool merch, as they call it, merchandise, and you can go to, I typed it in here, becomingrocky.com. Go there. There's a lot of cool stuff there, and also your Facebook site. You have some stuff there.
Yeah. And basically what this is for the audience, this is just merchandise based on our documentary. So it's not like I'm just selling Rocky merch. This is, if you want to help support our documentary, 40 Years of Rocky, The Birth of a Classic, or if you're not in America, Becoming Rocky, The Birth of a Classic. And it's just, we thought we would add merchandise to the documentary because the documentary is so short. It's 30 minutes. A lot of fans were like, we need something else. All right, here's some merchandise.
Yes, help. Spend money, oil the wheels of the economy, buy his stuff. And again, we're going to choose. I'll give you a couple of questions here, and I'm going to let you choose, Derek, who should get a book. We had Ray. She asked about Talia. She asked a few questions. Let's see. Ken Mack, he wanted to know about the training for Rocky. Let's see, Dr. Witten. Dr. Witten asked about Tommy Morrison. But out of those three, what was the most impactful or compelling question, would you say? They're all good. But
they're all good.
In the end, there could be only one.
Okay, I'm gonna be fair here. They're great questions, guys. But I believe Ray asked the most questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think I'm going to have to throw it to Ray.
Yeah. So Ray, I'm going to sign a book for you and send it to you. I know you bought 2 for your sons, but mama has to be taken care of. Don't do everything for your kids and nothing for yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. I used to tell people. The women used to get mad at me. I say, you got to come before your kids. How can you say that you're against kids? I'm like, I'm not against kids, but if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your kids. And please visit Derek's site, visit his, and look for his movies. Documentaries, look for him in the future. And we were blessed having him here because, it's a little different than what we usually do, but he is a mark of excellence. He's doing very successful, and continue that. You got to keep kicking. You're always, you're not, your mom or whoever's close to you, they're going to tell you, slow down, relax. I don't think that's in your programming, is it?
No, my brother came and visited me earlier, and he was just like, what all's going on? My head's spinning. I've got too much going on. And I just kind of want to just sit and relax, but sometimes it's just so difficult. So, but thank you, man. I've had a blast.
Well, don't try to turn that off because you can't.
Exactly.
I kind of have that too. And, sometimes it's like torture, but in a good way. It helps.
Oh, dude, with you bodybuilding and stuff, you kidding me? The dedication you guys have. You can't turn that off. No way.
I'm a milquetoast when it comes to, I gotta stay, listen, you lose cartilage as you go. I don't care how eye of the tiger you might be. Listen, when you start, I don't know if you're familiar with Ronnie Coleman, Mr. Olympia 8 times. and you know, listen, all the respect in the world, but he's uses a walker now because his hips, they did a great there's a company called Generation Iron, and they documentaries on you know, athletes, bodybuilders, and it was called The King. And let me tell you, what a poignant, telling picture of a guy who was the best ever, but at great cost. But here's a guy who he says he'd do it all over again. But I'm going to tell you something about chronic pain, and I know a little about this. If you haven't had it, listen. The sad thing about pain is you only appreciate it when you're in it. So, and he's in it all the time, and he can't escape it. But you know, he's got memories and all that. But I diverge. Hey, Derek, thanks again. You get a book too. I'm going to send you a book. And when I get the shirts in, I'll send you a shirt. Just don't get beat up wearing it or anything, because, you know, I rankle the rhubarb of some here and there. One guy told me he was going to break me in two. And I said, well, then it'll be two of me. You don't want, you know, you already don't like one.
Right.
I'm going to be looking for your stuff, man. I'm going to shoot you a note. I got to go see if the dogs are tearing up the house now. But this was fun. I hope this was fun for you.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
It's on your timeline. It's on YouTube and all that. And hey, man, thanks again. And thanks, everybody, for being here. I got some more people coming up this week. But for now, we got to go. And thanks again, Derek.
Thank you, man. I had a blast.
All right, man.